like you just said, and they can move anywhere. They're unconventional. They could stay at 25 and offer somebody that, hey, you're not going to get past us if you're available. But it's so all over the place. Is there any, like, just a kind of a number of guys that you're looking at, like, hey, these guys would fit really good. I expect them to be there around, between 20 to 30. Obviously, that's a big number. But in that area, in that range, is there any number of guys that you could say, hey, these are the guys, because I have my favorites that I think they should go after, like a guy like Bryce Sensabaugh, but some people don't love him in some areas. But I just think that what they actually need in the wing, I think that'd be a good fit. So is there anybody that sticks out to you that, hey, these are the perfect guys for the Grizzlies right now as they currently are constructed?
Yeah, like Jet Howard, and I'm not a real big Jet Howard guy.
Okay.
Because I think that he's not a good defender, and he only averaged like 3 rebounds per game, despite being 6'8", 215.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense for Memphis in a sense, because you have a good defensive team, and he does have some upside as a guy that can like attack a closeout and create his own shot if he needs to. So he's someone, if he's available, I mean, I think that, maybe the reason why he didn't defend is because the ankle injuries were a lot worse than we thought. I know he missed some time at the end of the season. So I definitely do my due diligence on that. If you want to go defense and then upside, Ryan Rupert he's a French prospect, but he played in New Zealand. I live in Dallas. He did all of his pre-draft training in Dallas. And I know it's easy to look at the numbers. I want to say he shot like 27 or 28% from 3, but he missed like 2 months of the year with a broken hand or a broken wrist. And that's not always in the stats when you just see the accounting numbers. But he's long arms. He's 6'7", had a 7'2" wingspan, likes to defend. His comparison coming from him is Mikal Bridges. And he thinks that he could be that type of player. And one of the reasons why he says that is because he's kind of been boxed as this 3-and-D guy. But he said that was the role that he had to play as a professional in Australia last year to earn minutes. But he feels like he has more to his game than just being a 3-and-D guy. He's the one that, you got to figure in the West. I think for like a team like Memphis, on one hand, you can draft for upside, but on the other hand, I think because you have your pieces in place, you may start drafting for fits. Like down the line, like, all right, if we have to play Luka Doncic in the playoff series, we need someone that we know that can defend him. Or even like Denver, you may say, all right, we need another big body behind Steven Adams, somebody that can just provide us with 6 hard fouls and someone that Jokic just isn't going to move like loose furniture. So another name that comes to mind, I think if the shooting continues to progress, and I think he could be a good fit, Kobe Jones from Xavier. He's a guy that, he's not like the sexiest prospect, but he just does a little bit of everything well. He rebounds, he passes. He shot 38% from 3 this year, which is like 10 points, 8 or 9, 10 points higher than what he shot the year before. He's always kind of been like a reluctant shooter, but if he can just become more confident and knocking down open shots, he's like that valuable connective tissue that I think plays winning basketball. So he's someone that I definitely think could be in that range. Maxwell Lewis, I talked about him. I think if they want to go young, and he may or may not be available, but again, this draft is so fluid. Gigi Jackson is a guy that I think that they should really take a long, hard look at. Gigi was the #1 player in his high school class, decided to reclassify up, started the season at 17 years old. And he is a guy, and I strongly believe if he stays in his class, his normal class, he's the #1 pick in 2024. At least the preseason favorite to be the #1 pick in 2024. And I just think he's really talented. I mean, there are some concerns about maturity, but he's 18 years old. I mean, he's only eligible in this draft by like 14 days. If he were born 2 weeks later, he's not even eligible to be in this draft. Doesn't turn 19 until mid-December, but he averaged 15 points, 6 rebounds per game, high upside as a shot maker. And so I think if it's a situation where the Grizzlies are like, he can't help us win right now, but we know we wouldn't be in the range to select him next year, then we'll take a flyer on him at 25. Maybe if he spends, the season with the hustle, I think that could be a really good value pick at 25 if they stay at 25, which, Memphis,
exactly. And that's the funny thing is like, you're laughing just like we all are as fans and people that cover this, closely. It's laughable because honestly, we have no idea. And I don't even know if they know, but they're just kind of like, all right, if we want a guy, we'll go get him. Sean, we'll get you out of here in a second, Rafael. But Sean, what do you have? Any more guys on here?
Rafael, that just excellent coverage as always. I will ask you this question. Say Memphis does move that, number 25 pick in a trade for a vet. That puts the focus on the second round. We've obviously got the one extra two-way that's now going to be on the NBA rosters moving forward. I know for a draft guy just such as yourself, that's probably exciting to see more guys, outside of the first round get an actual shot in the NBA. But maybe just one or two guys who you think could be there. I think that we saw, I forget his name off the top of my head, but the center from Alabama who came into the class late. He's been working out with a lot of teams here recently. He seems to be a guy that's kind of rising in that second round. But just maybe two or three guys. Memphis has the 45th and I believe 56th pick. Just some interesting names in the back end of that second round that you really think could be value picks in that area.
Yeah, were you talking about Charles Bediako?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah,
I believe that he went to Alabama. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I've heard some good things. I actually heard from a player that he was on his team in a workout and they won every matchup. So he's someone that is intriguing, that definitely could be available. The thing about the 3 two-ways, I think is offset because of the NIL. I think that kind of like evened it out. When you first hear about it, you're like, oh man, guys are going to have this opportunity. But, if it's a guy that's going to like a Power 5 school, his NIL money will be more than the money for a two-way. And more than likely, it's I guess you have to choose, do I want to play in the G League in front of like 60 people? Or do I want to, play, in the SEC and all that? And I mean, some of the money that's been thrown around is crazy. I mean, I talked to one agent and he had his player back out of the draft and said he got a $700,000 NIL deal and a car. So it's like, how do you tell a kid, you need to like take this two-way? So I said that kind of negated it. So I think it made the class a little bit weaker, especially considering the 2024 draft is not considered strong. I think a lot of guys that were on the fringe in the top 40 are like, no, if I go back to school, I can get NIL money and I'll be a first-round pick next year. So it's going to be interesting. It definitely helped that there's some guys that probably will get two-way contracts that probably would not have gotten one if NIL wasn't around and the classes were a little bit stronger. And then I also think some teams are just not going to use the extra the extra two-way contract. But guys that I think it's kind of funny, and maybe I'm a little biased because I've watched him for a while, but Drew Timme would be a guy that I would like, if I'm Memphis, I would have my eyes on as, one of the last picks in the second round or a two-way guy. He's a good passer. I mean, he doesn't pass the eye test because he's not jumping out the gym or blocking shots, but I mean, he is a phenomenal low post scorer. And I think, and I still believe in the post game. And I think, maybe in a playoff game, he could be a wild card where, a team goes small and you have a guy that you can just give the ball to on the block and he can punish a team for switching. Oscar Tshiebwe from Kentucky. I think he could be available in that range. Phenomenal rebounder. I mean, it's just hard to find a guy that goes after rebounds like that. He's a little small at 6'9", but he does have a defined role that he could, provide for Memphis. But then you can always go with shooters. Imani Bates could also be in that range. And he's a really good scorer. The big concern with him is his shot selection. And it's weird because he has so much confidence in himself that it leads to bad shots. And I just thought about it. He's a name that people in Memphis are familiar with. So maybe, that could be something that people are like, I don't know. We saw how that worked out. And then Steph Lundy is a guy from Penn State that I like. A little older, 23 years old, may not have the upside that people think, but he had a 6'10" wingspan. He shot 40% from three. And what I like about him is that he's a really good shooter on the move. Not like Luke Kennard, but he's a guy that you can run on actions and pin down. So, I mean, I think the Grizzlies are, number one, they're in a great situation because, like I said, they have their guys, and now all you need to do is find the pieces to fit around them. And I think in this draft, you can find some guys that can come in and help.
And we know that they value movement shooting, and, with some of the injuries that they've had to the front court, get another developmental big. You've seen how Xavier Tillman worked out. You've seen how Kenneth Lofton worked out. Finding the next guy kind of in that mold will definitely work out. So it's a great insight, Rafael. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I have a question for you guys. Do you think
boy.
Memphis is going to consolidate some of their talent for, a guy that has like a bigger name? Because they have so many young pieces that I don't know if it's possible to give everybody proper time to develop. Do you think a trade is on the horizon where they can like consolidate some of those guys?
I'll go before Sean. I'm just going to say, I pray to God that I hope they do. Sean, I know probably Sean's fiending over here trying to say anything he can. So Sean, I'll give you the floor.
No, when it comes to it, Rafael, yes. So the answer is that, when Zach Kleiman came to the end of the year press conference, he made the mention, should we have doubled down on talent like we did? And last year at the draft, I asked him directly, when you look at these guys, it seemed like shot quality stood out as the main defining factor between Jake LaRavia and David Roddy. And you saw that when that didn't work out, he went out and he got Luke Kennard. And then he said at the end of the year press conference, should we have doubled down on talent? Well, I think that Luke Kennard was kind of the tip of the iceberg in that the Grizzlies are figuring out, hey, through last summer, development had been our key. That's what we had been so good at doing. Now this summer, it's the understanding that you've got to balance out certainty with development. So I definitely do think that while LaRavia, didn't develop as you would like for them to, you may not necessarily have them in a place themselves to be trade candidates in a potential deal. But I do think with Tyus Jones, and I do think the fact that he's more of a regular season value than a postseason value, I think you couple him with some of our present and future first, plus maybe one of those young wings, you go out and you get that certain guy, like an OG. We would all love McHale, but that's probably not happening. But I do think that the Grizzlies go and find somebody that they can bet on, somebody who has a bit more certainty and upside than Dylan Brooks provided, get that guy to come in, and then keep a Roddy and either a LaRavia or a Zaire to continue to develop. And then you're balancing out both the certainty of a wing that you can rely on, but ought to complement our core three, but also that development. So I think they're going to focus on that type of trade. Maybe not a huge superstar bringing in type trade, but balancing out getting that guy with still having a few pieces to develop.
And that's what I've been thinking about. But I'm like, depending on what happens with Ja,
right?
Can you afford to trade Tyus Jones if there's a 20-game suspension?
Yes.
That's what makes it hard for me to figure out, because I think Tyus would be like the piece that another team would want, but I mean, you may need him to start the season.
Could we not just go get his younger brother?
You can, but I mean, who's San Antonio's point guard right now?
That's it. That's the problem. We'll send Tyus for Trey, and we'll add in a Devin, Vassell or Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, that would be a win.
Throw him a bunch of picks. Hey, here's Tyus with Wemby for a little bit.
Yeah, that would be a win.
I do one more question. I'll get you out of here. Julian Strawther. I love him. I love his game. I know that he's been, all the way up into the 20s on some people's big boards, all the way down into the 40s. Like, he is a very wide range first, second round. I just think he would fit the Grizzlies as a team as a whole. Do you like him, dislike him? Is there anything about his game that maybe you see fit or don't fit with the Grizzlies?
Yeah, I think he's a good fit. He's a 40% shooter from three, average 15 points a game. He's not like this 18 or 19-year-old. He does have 3 years of experience. He's gotten better every year. But the most underrated aspect of his game that people don't talk about is he's a very good wing rebounder. He averaged about 6 rebounds per game on the wing. And I think he would be a fit. I think he's more so of a plug-and-play, ready-to-go guy. And I think for a team like Memphis, that's what you need, because, I mean, the Grizzlies are – they're a young team, but they're not like the young and up-and-coming team anymore. They're like a team that is expected to win some playoff series, and I think he's a guy that can come in and help right away.
Yeah.
Rafael, what's the most underrated part of your actual basketball game? I mean, are you a sharpshooter from the corner? Are you a connector? Well, I mean, your actual game itself, what's the strength or more underrated aspect of Rafael Barlow's actual game on the court?
Well, it used to be my speed, but I lost my first step with age. So now I'm like I'm like the game manager. That's bringing the ball up court and getting like assists that I didn't even really create for guys. It's just they did all the moving and I passed it. So no, I mean my first step is gone. And I didn't plan ahead. I didn't plan for the day that I would be 40 plus. So I never worked on my jumper.
Rafael Tyus Jones Barlow. There we go.
I like it. All right, well,
I turn the ball over a lot more than that, though. So,
yeah, you can't compete with his assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah,
those Jones boys. All right, well, he is Rafael Barlow. Rafael, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. It's always a highlight of mine, and we're going to have some other people on eventually as we lead up to the draft. But when you said, what date you're coming, I'm like, all right, sweet. We can start with you. It's only going to get worse, but that's okay. Well, at least we'll have the best for first and not best for last. But I can't thank you enough for coming on here, hanging out with us.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, like I said last year, you want me on, shoot me a message. I can make it happen. So we can do it again right after the draft if you need.
Dude, I definitely will.
Always good hearing your opinion, Rafael. Thanks for all your time and keep up the great work. Nothing but the best to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Rafael, thank you. We're going to keep on going, but we'll let you get out of here. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
All right, thanks again.